All right, so at school we have about 3 of these Prusa 3D printers, and if you have a PC, Macintosh, or Linux computer at home, I recommend you get the software. It's free. Go to the website, software, and just install this one right here. If you have a Chromebook, it's not going to work for that, so we'll talk about that another day. And so once you have the software, then on my computer, I click the Start button. Here's my programs. Here's Prusa. And then down here, this is the actual software. It has a black and orange kind of half circle, I would describe it. So I launch that. And the first time you launch it, there will be a setup wizard. So the first time you run it, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to say, welcome to Prusa Slicer Configuration Wizard. Next. So it's important you know what 3D printer we have. I'd write this down. Basically, you want to check the box where it says original Prusa i3 MK3. Well, either one of these, I think. Do you know, Seth, if we have the S model or the non-S? So I click this. This is the one we want, okay? I click next, 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 next. Now, filament. This is basically the plastic we're going to use. The filaments, they'll always say what type it is and how the diameter of it. And so next thing to write down is that PLA is probably the most widely used generic run-of-the-mill plastic for 3D printers. And it probably wouldn't really matter too much which one you picked here, but let's just say we have the Prusa. So we got PLA. That's the type of plastic we're using. And after that, basically, we're done. So this is the software. And this is how you launch it. So we have to get our project in here. So let's go over that really quick. So let's say, for example, I have a project that I want to get in. How do you do it? So what you're going to do is in the lower left corner of your screen, you're going to right-click and click Export. Right-click here and click Export. The format is important. It's already on STL, which is the correct one. And so I'll click OK. It's going to go to my downloads folder, and I'm going to call it Keychain 2. So now we've exported this to a format called STL, and the Prusa slicing software likes that. Now, what the heck is a slicer? What is slicer software? Basically, it's specific software that can take in computer-aided designs and get them ready for the 3D printer. So slicer software gets CAD designs ready for specific 3D printers. And like most programs, if you want to bring something in, you go to File and Import. So File, Import, and here it is. All right, so here's my keychain. A couple things on the left side. We have the move command. So if you guys are in class and there's 6 other students, be like, hey, anyone want 3D print today? And I'm just going to move my thing. Make sure it doesn't go outside the white line here, but move it off. And then import in a second student's thing and a third one. They could share their file with Onshape with the person at the computer. And so you can import, as many things until this build plate is totally full. So please make sure you get as much on here as is needed for that class period. Okay, so besides moving, scale, hopefully you don't have to scale things, but sometimes if you want, the second one to be a little bit bigger than the last one, it's easy just to scale it up a little bit. But hopefully you're designing to scale in Onshape. Next one is rotate, and I can just hold this thing and rotate. I can hold the blue one, the green, the purple. So the next one is place on face, it says, and it's already there. And then we have cut. So that's how those controls work right there. And if you hold down the left mouse button, you can rotate around. So let's take a look here. Over here on the right side now, we have some quality. I'm just going to leave it as it is. We've got the right filament. And but there's something called supports here, which is really important. I want you to write this down. It says supports none. We want to change this, okay? We're going to change it to be everywhere. It's asks you a question. We're going to say yes. Now, why do we need supports? Well, let me show you here. If you look at this keychain, this area right in here, it's kind of off the build plate, kind of floating in space. And you can't print these layers just in thin air, right? It's got to be built from the build plate. So if you have supports, it's going to build that in. For example, over here on the lower left corner, it says preview. And you can see that this brown layer is kind of like the base layer. And it's going to have a couple layers of this green support material that we can rip off later. And then it's going to have a place then to kind of build that up. That's what supports are. Let me go back to this and let me just show you really fast. If I have none and I go to slice, I'm going to get an error here. It says error, usually caused by negligible small extrusions. So you get this error right there. Why did it happen? What happened? Because I didn't have. It's because I needed supports and I didn't have it on. So now when I do it, it's going to work. So what's cool right now is I can move this slider down all the way to the bottom, and I can see my first layer, second layer, and I can see my layers as it's going to print it, which is kind of interesting. And you're just kind of inspecting this. So it looks good. Again, we might have 10, 15 projects on here. So once you've sliced it, now it doesn't say slice here anymore. It says export G-code. And G-code is the language of most CNC machines. So we're speaking English now. The language of CNC machines is G-code. It's actually, a programming language. You might have heard of HTML before or something. So G-code, we're going to click this here. And on the 3D printer, you will find an SD card. And on our computers, on the left side, is a slot to pop that in. So I push it in, and you'll notice here on the left side, in about a second, there it is. It says Prusa. It might say something different, but that's it. And I'm going to call it P2 keychain. So now I've exported the G code onto it. And if I go to this, I can show it to you. Here it is. That's my file right there. So now I'm going to pop this out, and we're going to take a look at our 3D printer. All right, again, we probably have it to where we have, period 1 for this 3D printer, period 2 for this one, and so on. So that way, your class kind of has its own dedicated printer. And one thing I want you to know, it's pretty cool with this, how these orange spots you see on here, these were all printed with the 3D printer, which is pretty interesting. And so I have this SD card here, and I'm going to flip it to where it looks upside down, and it's gonna pop in here on that side. Another thing I want to go over is let's see if I can get this down here. All right, so if I press this button, I get a menu, and I want to point out that there's a settings and a move access. I'm going kind of fast right now, but I want to show you this here. That's weird. Oh, never mind with that. All right, so once you're at the 3D printer, what you're going to do is you're going to grab an alcohol wipe here. And I want you to know too that this board comes off here, okay? And so it's really important when you print, you never want to print on this black board here. You want to print on this green one. And if you see all your prints on here, you don't want to rip them off on here because you're going to damage the machine. So if you have your prints here, the first thing you want to do is just pull this thing off. You want to make sure that this should be clean already, but just give it a visual inspection, and so make sure it's clean. And then you'll see that there's these 2 pins right here, these 2 pins. And so I want this part here to basically match up with that, and then drop this down. And you want to make sure that there's nothing on here. There might be a strand of plastic here, some on the left, but go ahead and make sure that this thing is all clean with the alcohol. You can even flip it upside down. And so this is important to do every single time. All right, so once I've done that, I'm going to, all you really have to do is just press this button, and I move this thing like this. It says print from SD. So I click that, and then it says P2 keychain, and then you hit this, and that's it. It's going to warm up right now. It's going to calibrate itself. And you can see up here, I have the spool. I'm going to order some different colors, but mainly you want to make sure it's not like at the very end, but when it runs out, it runs out. No damage is going to happen. And we can put in a new spool. On this one, it needs a new spool. And so I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to go down here and say auto load filament. So when you get filament, a lot of times it might be kind of bent like this. And so you want to cut your filament kind of at an angle. So it's hard to get a good camera view, but at an angle like this, so not perpendicular. So not perpendicular, but at an angle like that. I got a nice clean cut here. And then as soon as it tells me to, I'm just going to go ahead and put this right inside of the hole right here. But you got to be careful that the spool doesn't unwind a lot. Be careful the spool doesn't unwind. So we'll take a moment for that.